All right, I'm here in Antalya, Turkey. Got here last night and it was pouring rain. But now it is absolutely beautiful. I barely need this jacket. And what is behind me is real. That is a real mountain range. Look at this view. Unbelievable. It's so beautiful here. And I've been doing, just to pick up where we left off yesterday, after EOS really got crushed, I did research, because when I start to doubt the cryptocurrency, which is what naturally happens in the blockchain movement, which is what naturally happens. It's not rational. But when the prices drop, it's hard to stay confident fully. And so what I do, my strategy, is just to do research and find people who are calm and collected and who have been through the ups and the downs for years. And there are many of them, many smart people. PhDs, MBAs, economists, philosophers, not really politicians. Maybe politicians, but they don't talk about it. They keep that quiet. But did research, and the general consensus is that it was a technical plummet. So basically what happened was you had traders who have automated sell-off points, stop losses, to prevent excessive losses in the event of major drops. And those stop losses kind of cascaded. One hit and then people sold, and that caused the price to go down, and then more stop losses were triggered, and there was just a big drop. That's how the markets dropped so quickly. And they bottomed out, and I bought more EOS right about after it had settled for a day or two, at what ended up being the bottom so far. I mean, it might go down more. It's possible, but it can't go down. It can't go down that much more. It's already far below the amount that they've raised. So EOS, during its ICO, its initial coin offering, which is basically an IPO, except it's the blockchain equivalent, they raised $4 billion. And that $4 billion was turned into cash near the high. And then that $4 billion was distributed to 7 international venture capital firms, tech firms, who are now funding dApps, which are basically just decentralized apps. So they're tech companies, just like any other tech company that you may have heard of, except they are decentralized, and they're on which means that they leverage blockchain technology and the decentralized server setup. And these will all run on the EOS platform, which is similar to Amazon Web Services, the cloud, except it's a blockchain-based system. And that money's already been distributed. So the fact that the market cap right now of EOS is below $2 billion and they raised $4 billion is pretty hilarious. It's not hilarious. It's pretty unheard of to have such an undervalued. I hesitate to call it a business, because it's more than that. It's a platform for businesses. When you own EOS coins, that entitles you to what are effectively IPO dividends. So anytime a new dApp launches on the EOS platform, almost as an advertising mechanism, the new dApps, which have associated coins, will issue some amount of coins, not a huge amount, but some amount of coins to all of the EOS registered coin holders. And I'll go this way. doing some maintenance on that stuff over there. To the registered coin holders. And I can go through here. And so I've gotten already myself over the last 6 to 9 months, I've gotten more than a dozen, what do they call, airdrops. And so I have coins from more than a dozen companies that are running on the EOS blockchain platform. And these coins are not even listed on exchanges yet. So when they are, the demand will theoretically, generally, what happens is that they go up in price. So this is a compounding effect that you will find. And it's pretty neat. I've also been listening to, in addition to reading that book that I think so far has been the most informative book on the blockchain phenomenon by George Gilder, called Life After Google. If you read one book to get smart on this stuff, from an economic standpoint, political, philosophical, technological, it's heavy in all of those areas. It's a little dense and it takes a while to get through. It's one of those books that you have to read very slowly. Or at least I do. Maybe I'm just a slow reader, but that's, at least I'm picking it up. It's this book. Read this book. Life After Google. The Fall of Big Data, which refers to basically the monetization of all of the content that you produce on all these different platforms. Content being like your posts on Facebook and tweets on Twitter and your LinkedIn profile. All of that stuff is valuable. Your eyeballs are valuable, but you don't see any of that money. And there's not a great reason for that besides the fact that these companies can get away with it. But imagine if everybody that participates on these platforms had an incentive to do so and was able to receive some of the value, some of the money that is being made for monetizing their data in the same way as it is more or less today. It'll be a little bit different, but what they do, what these digital systems allow for, because they're based much more in kind of the digital world than even the tech companies that exist today, they allow for much more complex structures of incentives. And those incentives, so mining, for example, is an incentive system. It's a reward system for running the computers that support any given network. And they can automate rewards in other forms too for the users. So when you post something, if you add content that is deemed valuable to that network through, like a liking mechanism. So like if you got a lot of likes on Facebook, a lot of hearts on Twitter or something like that, the blockchain equivalent might actually give you money for that. In fact, it likely will. I would say that it will. There's a website that I've written about called Steemit, which was the second most popular blockchain platform designed by Dan Larimer, who is the creator and CTO of EOS, coincidentally, which is basically, and it's called Steemit, and it's called, and it's basically medium.com, which is, that blog site. And the liking mechanism on the endorsement mechanism on Steemit is similar to Medium, except on Steemit you get Steem coins. You get the associated network currency when you are clapped for. Although I don't think it's claps. On Medium, you hit the liking mechanism is a clap, and you can like crank up the claps, and it's kind of neat. But on Steemit, you basically decide how much steam you want to give to your favorite posts. It's pretty cool. That platform has some flaws. It basically the ICO mechanisms have been in development, and I mean, I can get into it. So basically, what EOS enables is for blockchain platforms to blockchain-based platforms to exist, apps to exist that leverage the immutability and those complex reward systems that I was talking about, without having to get dedicated miners. Meaning, like all of those computers that people set up and link in to execute the two functions: the compute and the storage of the data on the network. So doing the actions, the thinking, the processing, and then storing all the data that results from that computing by all the users. EOS basically enables people to hop on and not have to worry about getting miners. I believe that's how it works, if I understand it correctly. I think I do. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think that's the case, but yeah. And then, in addition to reading this book by George Gilder, I've been watching talks by, I think his name is Griffin. I think it might be George Griffin, but anyway, it's Griffin, and the book, which was published in 1994, is called "The Creature from Jekyll Island," which sounds like a sci-fi thriller, but Jekyll Island is a reference to the place where the Federal Reserve was designed through collaboration among a few different bank representatives. There were 4 in particular, and they designed the Federal Reserve. And it talks about basically how that scheme works. It's private. It's not federal. It's actually not a government entity. And it's basically a way of controlling the money supply in a way that allows the printing of money and the injection of additional capital bit by bit every year, which dilutes the value of the money that you're holding, that we are holding, and thereby transferring purchasing power, our purchasing power that we've earned, up to the banks, to the bankers themselves. And it's a racket. It's bullshit. It's clever. It's brilliant, even. But its time has come. I don't think that our economy can stand much more of it. And now there's a better alternative, and that is cryptocurrency, where you get to hold your value and see it appreciate as the network grows. And yeah, no more of this crazy inflationary capital that we have. Some really interesting quotes in there. Last thing I'll mention is actually a quote from Griffin himself, where he says that that it is when you have an inflationary economy, it is best to hold debt, and because that debt becomes worth less as time goes by. And if you can pair holding your debt, so I'm thinking about, for example, student loans, healthcare loans, if you've had a significant operation or something like that. If you don't have onerous debt, like I'm talking about more than 10%, which is rare, try to pay the minimum off if you can. And any money that you don't have to pay for your debt, put it into Bitcoin if you can. Because in the long run, over the years, the Bitcoin is going to be worth a lot more than your debt, and in the long run, you will be much better off. And I know that sounds crazy. I know that we've been taught to pay off our debt. We think it's the responsible approach, but the rational approach, objectively, given the cost of debt, is to put the money where it's making money, and the most money can be made in an asset class that has the greatest historical returns of any asset class in the last 10 years, which is cryptocurrency. Crazy things, but not really, if you think about it. Anyway, this is Rich Downing signing off from Antalya. A beautiful place. I highly recommend visiting this place. Look at this. It's incredible. Who would have known? It's amazing.